Y'all come on here and take a video. I am Brian. Hey, happy Sunday. Welcome to the show. It's V949. I am Lady Wu, and this is Vital. You all are in here with me, and I'm so excited to have you. It's just me in the physical studio. In the virtual studio, we do have some people coming. They are coming. They are coming. So, this has been a very busy week. I'm going to allow you guys some time to check in. Make sure that you're here with me, that you can hear me, that you can see me. Those of you that are listening through your radio, keep listening. Call somebody, let them know. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Aunt. All right. So while you guys are coming in, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. I'm going to be nice. Yeah. All right. So this Sunday is a big week. There are a lot of things that have happened. Even right now, as we are on the air here in Birmingham, Montgomery, Alabama, is in full effect right now in a very vital way, honoring the life of our Congressman John Lewis, who passed away last week and was laid to, or will be laid to rest this week. He has toured. He has toured, y'all. So right now he's lying in state at the State House in Montgomery, Alabama. And from there, we'll go to Washington, D.C. And I think that is just an awesome honor. His work has spoken for him in a major way. He went across the bridge where like we are often known for something in particular that we've done. He's done so much, but for one of the main things, and then somebody even threw a shot and said that well, he's known for getting beat up on the bridge. He's known for way more than that because we have to think about why he was even on the bridge. So the Edmund Pettus Bridge, John Lewis was about 24, 25 years old. He was a college student working with voting rights. That was his thing. That's what he was doing. He was working alongside Dr. King, and he was attacked along with several others, a very brutal attack on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. So now that march over that bridge every year is a very historic event that John Lewis was always a part of. And most recently, the one that just happened, he was there in spite of his illness. So he was able to go across one more time living, and he made a very moving speech there on the bridge in his last months of life. And he has crossed again today. So we have some vital family that's in Montgomery right now taking advantage of that moment to pay their respects and to witness such a historical moment in history. A black man lying in state in Montgomery, Alabama, and then headed to Washington. So yeah, Marlon, I see you on the comments. Bloody Sunday was the day. That was the day that these events that I speak of happened years ago. Okay. So that's happening right now. Also, there's still talk about coronavirus. COVID-19 is real. It's still very much present. So I hope that you all are wearing your mask and using your hand sanitizer. My mask is right here for those of you who are looking, but I am the only one in studio. So I'm safe right now. And the surfaces are clean. Shouts out to Ms. Monica who was handling that. Right before I walked in, hand sanitizer is here. We have to make sure that we're doing that. So to get us into our conversation for tonight, there has been a major uproar and the world divided about students and teachers returning to school. So students and teachers returning to school in August. School starts back August 24th. Most schools have decided that they will go back virtually. All right, so we're pretty clear on that. Most schools will go back virtually for the first 9 weeks. But then there's the athletic department. The athletes will be playing. They'll be playing it, and a lot of people are rather concerned about that. So how are you going to open up these football programs and have the athletes, which are still students, not come to school but be able to play the contact sport of football on Friday evenings? And then I also heard that it's up to the schools to decide what the social distancing measures will look like. I am the journalist that is bringing you this story. So don't attack me, but I do want your comments. I want your comments. 9948949, or you can just put them on social media, or you can text them. But I do want to know what you guys feel about the return to the football field versus the return to the classroom. I was having a conversation with a sister of mine that said that, entertainment seems to be way more important than education. So entertainment first, education second. And that's not good. That's not good, because I'm already thinking about the deficits that so many children will face because they don't have access to everything that they'll need for school. Some parents will not buy laptops and tablets. Some parents will not take the time to work with children. Some guardians will not be interested in virtual learning and will not encourage their students to participate in virtual learning. It is about to present a lot of issues. So you have the debate of, on one hand, we keep the children out and they stay safe from COVID, but then on the other hand, you keep the children out and they have to endure abuse, neglect, and deficits in intellect and learning. So I see a couple of educators on the live as well, and I want to know what you guys think about that. What are your thoughts about the return to school in the year 2020, the year of COVID? The year of COVID and the return to school. So that's where we are right now. That's how we're going to open the show. That's what we're going to start with. I really want to know what you guys think about these particular topics, or that one in particular, to get us started. And then later on in the show, we're going to be joined by some young people who are juniors and seniors in high school that have had some awesome conversation this week. But I also want their opinions on being in the classroom, being those actual students who are um, risking it all to go back to school for a good education. So that's where we are. That is where we are in the world today. COVID numbers continuing to rise. Um, our beloved John Lewis being laid to rest today, and the world saluting him. He's being celebrated as a civil rights icon all over the world, in Montgomery, Selma, Troy, here in Birmingham, Atlanta, Georgia, and going back to Washington, D.C. So, yeah, it's a lot happening, but those are the main things. Those are the most vital, the most pressing for me right now, and the ones that I've observed you guys talking about and thinking about over the past week. So, chime in. How you feel? What you think? COVID-19, John Lewis, back to school, parents and social media, and being able to fully service our children so that they will be able to compete once all of this is over. We have to be honest about where we are, what we have, what resources we've always had that we haven't taken advantage of, and how our children are about to be impacted. I see a comment from Charlie that says, I wonder, would it be feasible to have students return in clusters? I know some schools are going to the A day, B day setup. Good comment, Charlie. So, A day, B day, if on A day, the cluster of students comes in and one student has symptoms of COVID-19 and that student is in its cluster or in their cluster, what happens to the other students? So once again, even if we open back up and we have the clusters and some students come A day, we're gonna have to shut down A day. We're gonna have to clean up B day. And then we're back on A day. So we're off schedule again. That's my concern, that I don't know what type of system will be put in place if people are coming in and just rotating in and out, going back to different households, going back to different people, and coming back to the same building. I just don't know how that would be managed. And I guess there is someone who has that type of knowledge. It ain't me, but I do wonder about that. So I get the clusters. I get the necessary precautions being taken beforehand, but I just wonder, how do you truly control spread of disease in a place such as a school, especially in grade school, elementary school, middle school, where children are very much interactive and not in their own bubbles. Maybe by high school, you can kind of count on people to be maybe. I say maybe. I don't know. Maybe to be able to be to themselves and be responsible for themselves as far as masks and hand sanitizer and washing their hands and keeping their distance in high school. But I don't know. So I'm really concerned about that. I'm going to add Sturdy, the super producer, to the conversation and to the live. My boy, how are you?
Great, how you doing?
I'm awesome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
with, a- with all your background stuff going on. All right. So Tyler says,
There's a lot
even
going on, so
even if we keep it clean, or I'm assuming that it'll still be a dilemma of sorts. So just thinking about how we're going to open schools back up, like you where teachers are not responsible for children touching each other and touching their faces and taking their mask off. Who's going to be responsible for these little ones and for those who they'll go back to? So once they leave school, if asymptomatic is a thing, and they leave school and they go back home to where they live with their parents and grandparents and guardians and relatives and whoever they're going back to, what are they taking back with them? So all of these are questions that I'm asking, and I know that people at home have tons of questions and comments about that. Even what the school supply what the school supply list looks like in the day and age of COVID-19. So it's not pens and pencils anymore. It's 30. It's AirPods, earbuds, laptops, tablets, um, and that's it. Maybe a pen and a notebook, but school supply lists are not all extravagant and long how they used to be. I see some educators on here. Marlon Pinkins, you cannot get away with sending that list home asking for all these unnecessary school supplies anymore because students do not need those if they're working from home. But you think about the home environment for a lot of children, a lot of people, period, even people who work their jobs from home. The home environment has to be conducive um, to being able to be productive. If home does not present a good opportunity for you to thrive, you're going to fail because the public libraries are closed, so you can't go to the library to do work. Starbucks, you can't go sit in Starbucks and use the internet anymore. Um, I don't know what the options are. So that's the conversation that I would love to have with you guys right now, just to kind of talk it out. A lot of times we talk through and process these things. Somebody gets some answers, and I know there are parents and guardians and just concerned citizens who are wondering how our children will be able to survive such a uncertain school year. So Dr. Ellington says it's ironic how more emphasis is placed on athletics or the exploitation of student athletes opposed to education. This is where parents need to take a stand. Oh, I appreciate that. I love that. So, more emphasis on entertainment as opposed to education. So, and parents taking a stand. So I think a lot of parents are just going with the flow. My child plays football. This is the opportunity that my child has to be able to. They're a senior this year. They're getting ready to go to college. They get to be seen by scouts. This is the year that they have to do what they're going to do. So they have to play. Ah, man. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't have a child that's in that position, so that's not a decision that I have to make. But if any of you are those parents, please chime in and let us know. Got another comment on social media. It says, I think even if the students come back together or stay home, the virus will still attack because people are still walking around without masks, grocery shopping, and traveling. I'm not sure the best way to approach the school system. um, it's all an unfortunate situation. That is very much unfortunate. But even in the event of it being unfortunate, what can we do? Like, is there anything that we can do as parents, as guardians, as instructors, as a community to help our students be able to continue to thrive? So we already know that we are pretty much considered behind the eight ball in every area of life because we're 400 years behind our counterparts. And education being one of the biggest, there's such a gap when it comes to our people in education. So then resources not really being allocated to our people. And even if the school system says that, hey, we're going to give all of our students some type of tablet or some type of notebook or computer, some type of device to be able to do their work, the instruction and the support that comes with that is what really concerns me. Because if you had schools and classrooms before that you never saw parents and you never got paper homework back, you never got booklets or documents signed by guardians, I can only imagine what it's about to be like with everything being digital and virtual. I can only imagine being on time, being set up in the classroom or in the bedroom or wherever your virtual classroom is for your student. I can only imagine, and I'm really concerned about that. Yeah. So that's where we are. That's where we are. I have my own concerns, but this show is for everybody. It's vital. And you can call in and you can comment at any moment and share your thoughts and feelings about the particular topic. The return to school, COVID 19. COVID 19. So, coming up in this conversation, we are going to be hearing from some young people in just a few minutes. I see one of them already in the building. Kareem is in, and Kareem is going to share some conversation with us and some dialogue that I almost feel is expert at. Yeah, expert level high school student. So tonight's show is dedicated to the young people who are transitioning in ways that are unimaginable. Started, you remember when you were in high school, right?
I'm sorry, my mic was muted. Yes, I do.
Were you the type high school student that would be able to function in a virtual classroom?
Not at all. Not at all.
Like,
I need stuff to be in front of me. I need to like where I can reach out and touch it. Like the virtual classroom would never work for me.
yeah. I'm so concerned. Like you think about eighth graders, seventh graders, and sixth graders who don't have that attention span. Like it's
Yeah,
difficult for
my
adults.
exactly. My attention span is not built for that kind of stuff. Like how to be done very, very fast. I got like borderline ADD. Like it would have never worked. Not at
Yeah.
all.
I can't I don't know what I would have been like as a virtual learner in middle school or even in high school. Even in undergrad and college.
Mm-mm.
Like we didn't have that wasn't a
Yeah,
thing
my
then.
attention span now is not built for that. Like college, it would have never worked.
Grad school, I had no choice because we had like hybrid classes where some was
Okay,
online,
yeah,
some was go
that
to
makes sense.
campus. You know, it was a struggle. I ain't saying that it was easy, but I knew what the goal was. I'm, mentally just more mature anyway, but that still didn't mean
Right,
that it was
right,
easy. It still didn't mean it was easy.
right.
So I'm really feeling for younger learners. I really am. I really am.
Nothing
What
starting back up makes any sense right now. Like, just everybody relax. Just everywhere I see sports starting back up, school starting back up. Like, none of this makes any sense.
Yeah. Like
Like,
we're just gonna jump out there. I heard somebody today say, it's gonna be up to each individual. They just gonna have to go with their new normal.
nah,
What?
see,
That's
that's
such a
why we
risk.
are. That's why we at where we at now. Like,
Right.
we can't depend on people to make their own decisions right now. Like, we need people smarter than any of us to start making some decisions.
But when those people try to make the decisions, you have the president, I guess, feeling overshadowed and outsmarted, and he shuts them down.
He just got to deal with it then, because he's not smart.
He's not smart. There we
He's
go.
not smart. He's not
So your
smart. We
thoughts.
cannot depend on him. Ugh. Depending on y'all president to make any decisions for us, that's definitely not going to work. See, now I'm annoyed because you brought up
I'm
that
just
orange Oompa
saying.
Loompa,
I'm just
the
saying
orange
like
Oompa
that.
Loompa in the White House.
That's the leader. That's the person that's the person. So I just wanted to say
Mm.
that that's the person and that's the leadership. So with that type of leadership who says that, there's an appropriate time for mask and then, always is not the appropriate time. Like I can't trust this man to tell people how to reopen something. He's a risk. He's a what? Like what? Go on, pray, man.
No, I am, man. I'm like, oh man, we are in trouble. Like this, Nate, the whole nation and everything's opening up. I see bars and clubs opening up. Man, it's just I'm frustrated because like they be packed wall to wall. Like, why are we doing this?
I mean, so I can understand that people are looking for some type of relief in the day and age of COVID-19. This thing
Oh, I
started
get
in
that. I
March.
get that. Yeah, I get
Here it
that.
is almost August. So March, April, May, June, July, August. That's 5 months of some people having been home and not out since March. So 5 months ago. So yeah, I might want to drink. I might want dinner. I might want to go to somewhere, I don't know, somewhere to the park, somewhere. What is the difficulty in just practicing the basic recommendations of wearing a mask and washing your hands? Like I
And
see
whenever I
people
go out
refusing.
somewhere,
Hmm.
I don't there's not a mask in sight. Whenever I go, I've been in somewhere because I needed to relieve.
Yeah,
So I'm like, let me go to such and such. Hundreds of people in there. Not like it was
no
like
man.
three masks out of like 300 people. I'm like, I gotta go. I couldn't do it. I had to leave.
I'm
I'm
sure
like,
if
y'all
you
are really in here a while, and I can't even do it.
so I'm wondering like what that is. Like is that just the idea that I don't, I've heard for some people and for some groups that it's more about them, feeling that their First Amendment rights are not being imposed on. Like I have the right to choose if I'm going to wear a mask or not. Like that's the first part. I have the right to choose, and you're violating my rights by telling me that I have to wear a mask. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have COVID. I mean, that's some people's argument.
It's a horrible argument, though. Like you
I
don't,
mean, that's what
man.
it is, my brother. I have comments. I also see I see some people on the live on this feed who actually have who I would appreciate their opinion because these are educators and coaches and parents of athletes on the thread. I would love to hear from them, but I can understand also if you don't want to be involved in such a conversation because it's one of those where it's one of those that's a bit sticky, like I don't want to be the one to have said uh it's a risk, but I'm gonna do it anyway. All right, so comments read. Parents who are afraid. I've had parents to reach out and say, I just don't know what to do or where to start. And that's what I'm speaking about, Dr. Ellington. Like those parents who really just have no clue. Do I want to put my child in such a situation to where they're at risk by playing or by participating or training? Or do I want to forego this season and they lose opportunities? I don't know what to do. Then got someone here that says Sullivan said on Friday, that's the interim superintendent for Birmingham City Schools. Studies show that the average students can't focus on the screen longer than 17 minutes. 17 minutes. That's not long at all. Shoot for a 20-minute lecture and encourage independent learning. So that's a suggestion. But at what age would that even work? Like what age? So you think about the
Yeah,
lecture
I
and independent
don't.
learning.
I don't even think my attention span is at 17 minutes now,
You can't
and
listen for
much
17
less.
minutes.
I can't. I've been here for what
Oh
eight,
my goodness.
10, 8, 10 minutes. What I'm telling you is my attendance span is horrible now, and it was definitely probably a third of that in the seventh, eighth grade. So I know I'd be SOL if there was some some virtual learning going. That would not have worked for me. I need to
you
reach
need you
out and
need
touch
you need
stuff.
interaction.
Right,
Well,
physical
I
interaction.
see our
Exactly.
students. I see our students popping in and they're hanging around. Two of them have come in and some people are going to get a chance to hear them during the commercial break because we're about to do that in just a moment. Others of you will get to hear more from them in the second half and the second hour of the show because we have some great conversation in store for you with these awesome young men who will be a part of Vital tonight. So they're serving as the Vital Youth Crew, courtesy of the Birmingham Urban League with the Bull Talk that happened today at 4 o'clock p.m. I'm gonna keep the question open. Should schools reopen uh on the 24th of August? should they reopen. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Vital on V94.9. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear. I'm about to log right back out and come right back in.
You are very loud. So hey, if you all are watching, continue to stay here on the live. Welcome to Vital. We are in a break right now, but tonight's topic is really about the return to school, and we also have students in the live. Hello, guys. Say hey. Hey. So these young gentlemen are going to be a part of our conversation. I'm so excited for the information and the just the intelligence that you'll get from them. This awesome conversation about their opinion on different things and especially racism. So that's a big part of it. But we also want to talk about COVID and just how you all have adjusted. You want to give our online viewers just your names first?
Go ahead.
You start. You start.
Okay. My name is Kareem McHale, and I'm a rising senior at Hoover High School.
I'm Trevion Crane. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a recent graduate of Hoover High School. So,
All right then. So you'll be going to college.
mhm.
Are you going like actually physically going? Or are you gonna do virtual?
No, I'm doing online at Portland Community College.
Okay. All right. So just a little bit. Just wanted to kind of get you all introduced to those that are online. Everybody that's watching, share the video. So if you're watching right now, share the video, share the video to your group, to your friends, so they'll know that this conversation is happening. This is one of those conversations that's a don't miss. So make sure you go ahead and share. I'm sharing it right now as well. Let me make sure that I'm sharing it. And we will be getting started in about 1 minute. 30 seconds. All right, welcome back. You are listening to the Abby Award winning Vital Show right here on B94.9. I am the creator and host, Lady Woo. I am in studio solo, solo, but I got my virtual crew, and I'm so happy to have some representation from another generation, the Vital Youth Crew, courtesy of the Birmingham Urban League. So, welcome to the show, guys.
I'm glad to be here.
Pleased to be here.
All right, so I know that our some of our people, our viewers online, were able to hear your names and meet you guys before we came. Well, while we were in break, but introduce yourselves again, please.
You first this time.
All right, we switching over. All right, my name is Trevion Crane. I'm 18 years old. I'm a recent graduate of Hoover High School, and I will be relocating to Portland, Oregon.
My
Awesome.
name is Kareem McHale, and I'm a rising senior at Hoover High School, and I'm 17.
All right, so welcome, guys. I had the honor of being with you all today, quote unquote. We were together, and we had the beginnings of some great conversations, some great dialogue put together by the Birmingham Urban League on racism, prejudice, colorism, injustice. Woo, we talked about a lot. we touched on a lot, but I knew that an awesome opportunity, or what an awesome opportunity it would be for our listening audience to hear the perspective of what you guys brought to the airwaves via that platform. I wanted to bring them here to Vital Show because I felt that they were just so vital. So, uh, I want to start with Kareem this time to give us a little background. I know, you know, even how you identify that alone struck me in a way that I feel like we needed some education. I wanted to ask more questions. So just give us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm actually an Egyptian. I was born in Egypt and I moved here when I was young, 2 years old, and I have dual citizenship in both places, Egypt and the U.S. And so, there's a lot of I have a lot of friends who are foreign, who have foreign descent, and they try to kind of take a sideline role sometimes on the matter of
Mm,
racism because it's seen as like a white and black issue. But what I don't understand is that in all respects, I feel like I identify as white because the race is it's kind of transitioned over time. It used to be like a kind of like an origin thing. Where are you from? But it's
mhm.
kind of morphed now into a social thing, as in like who do you identify with? And
Okay.
I feel like in every way, not only do I identify just because of my looks as white, but the way that I'm treated by other people with the privilege that white people
Mm,
have. That's why I identify as white as well.
wow. Okay. Trevion,
Mhm.
who are
Well,
you?
I don't know. Nah,
I'm
nah,
learning that. Woo.
nah. Like I said, I'm from Portland, Oregon. In the video, I talked about a little bit how I was raised in a diverse community, which I was, and I guess that gave me a little more perspective on how things should be and how people can come together. Because
Mm,
in Hoover, statistically it's a very white city, but in the high school it's one of the most diverse schools in the state from my
okay.
knowledge. So there's still issues that they should address, but
Mhm.
just getting that insight and then also being with the urban league, I could see how, unifying cultures and whatnot can benefit people. And the first step to unification is conversation, so we needed bull talk.
Mhm. The first step to unification is conversation. So we needed bull talk. And I know that you were behind a lot of those questions as you've served for 2 years as an
Mhm.
intern at the Birmingham Urban League.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So you had your hand in this conversation before we actually had the conversation. And what were some of the points that you know, being the director or part producer of that, what were some of the things that you felt that we needed to discuss? What do we need to be having conversations about?
uh Colorism and classism, and also coming together even with your political differences. We didn't
Okay.
get to talk about colorism and whatnot, but colorism, of course, white and black, but then also just even within our own communities, like the African American community, we still have struggle with light skin versus dark skin all the
Mhm.
time. And it stems back from slavery because, in slavery, the lighter skinned people would be in the house, what they call the house Negro.
Mhm.
And, they it looked like they had better treatment, but in the house there was still issues going. And then the darker skinned people would be out in the fields, just out. So then that hatred just kind of stemmed from there. And then now it's just breaking off like, oh, light skin do this, dark
You
skin do
still
that.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can't, as black people, we can't do that because if we're trying to get our message across and make real change, we have to change within ourselves. And Malcolm X said something along that lines, that we're not really outnumbered, we're just out like words or something like that.
Mm.
So we just got to come together and
And you
hopefully
mentioned
we'll see
classism.
results.
Okay, so with the colorism, it's more of the internal hatred or the internal discrimination. But then with classism, speak about that right quick, and then Kareem jump in at any moment.
Yeah, classism. Okay, so my neighborhood was lower income. It wasn't really low, but you still dealt with people who were either on Section 8 or who were working almost borderline middle class. So it was I seen that, and then once I moved to Alabama into Hoover specifically, you see a lot more middle class and upper class. And then, with me going back and forth between urban league, still staying in touch with inner city and what's going on in the inner city, it seemed like I would call it the outer city because they're almost left out from certain things just because of
Yeah.
their income. And especially with the schools right now in COVID, you see it especially like Hoover, they're fortunate enough to have computers and whatnot and options for their students. And whereas Birmingham City, I'm not singling them out. However, they don't have as much income coming into their schools as they do Hoover. So they're
Mm.
stuck in a little situation right now. And that also stems back into classism. And for those in Birmingham who's viewing, Kelly Ingram Park, if you look at it from the church,
Mm-hmm.
the left side it gets poorer, and the right side that's where you get into the what they call the over the mountains, where Vestavia, Homewood, Hoover. So it's almost our poverty line right there, and it seemed like that's where communication stops between
Wow.
classes. So if we could understand each other more, then first of all, our community will be better as a whole, and we wouldn't have to deal with weird oddball issues.
Okay. I'm here for it. So hopefully our viewers and listeners are understanding where we're going as well. Show these young men some love just with your comment, with what they're saying. Give us some hearts and likes because I am sure that you're going to be able to gain even more the further that we go. We have more time with this conversation. So before we get any deeper into classism and colorism, I want to go back to COVID because I know that's also something that we were supposed to be kind of discussing as well. And before you guys jumped on, I was talking about the reopening of schools. Kareem, you are actually going to your senior year.
Yes.
What are you
Uh,
thinking? Like, what is this for you?
so I almost don't know what to think because I don't really know what things besides the fact that we have three options: a virtual, completely virtual, and then an in-person, and then a blended learning option. Um,
Okay.
those are the three options we have. I have a very vague idea of what's going to happen in the classroom, but already from some of the things that I've heard and some of the things that I haven't heard, unfortunately,
Mhm.
it's kind of telling me that this is going to be a big problem. And
Oh.
I'm starting to think that just based on looking at it on an international scale,
Hmm.
all the schools that opened up, for example, in Norway, and in Israel, they opened up as well once they had figured things out and everything was under control. That's the key component. They didn't open up until everything was under control, and we are very, very far from under control right now. In
Amen.
fact, we are probably at the worst point, quite possibly at the worst point of this entire pandemic. We haven't even gotten out of the first wave yet. So
Wow.
the issue here is that you are putting so many students. Most of the students want to go in person, and why wouldn't they? No one wants to do virtual school. That's understandable.
Right.
So most of the students, I would say 80% of the students at our school want to be in school. Um, well, how are you going to space them 6 feet apart in the classrooms and still allow everyone to go to class? Some people are going to have to be at home some days. Some people are going to have to go to school. How is lunch going to work? Everyone has to have obviously their masks off during lunch.
Yeah.
And if you think that students are not going to try to take their masks off against the rules at times, that's another issue because this is all
Whole another
considering the
issue.
fact that students are going to comply with all the rules, and that never happens.
And
so
those crowded
Wow.
hallways.
so it's just
Right.
there are too
So does
many
that
logistical challenges, and I don't think it's going to work out too well.
so are you fearful about a return? Like does that bring about a sense of fear knowing that hey, I know who I am, I know who my friends are, and I know that all the rules will not be followed. So like I'm a bit nervous. Are you nervous?
I am nervous because I'm not nervous for myself. If I get COVID, I'll recover. I'm okay.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not like to say that I shouldn't wear a mask or anything. That means that I know
Right.
I have a responsibility to wear a mask because there are people that I have to protect. I'm more worried about my family when it comes to COVID because
Mm.
I think that's the kind of the boat that most students are in. They understand. I already know some close friends who've had COVID and they recovered fine. They had 2 days of fever and they're okay. Um,
Okay.
that's not the case for all students, but we have families and we have older individuals that we live with, and that's the main problem, I believe, in terms of going to school. And I am beginning to think that just based on what's happening and the spikes in cases, that we are not going to be going into school on August 20th. I have a feeling that they're going to tell us that we're going to be completely virtual for at least the
Mhm.
first 2 weeks at
Oh
some
Jesus.
point. Yeah.
Wow. Trevian, what you got?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what he was saying, logistics is not going to work, especially at capacity schools, because you could social distance in a classroom. I could see that, But in the hallways, you cannot stop people from being in the hallway. Because I know just off the top, Kareem, you know, A Hall in Hoover might
It's
have a
horrible.
hundred kids in one area. You can't stop that unless if they, you know, maybe push back some of the classes to give you more time to leave. But at the same time, you can't do that with all schools. And
This is going to be crazy. So I mean, I know I went to Huffman High School, and when I was at Huffman, we had the circles. And the circles were like each building was a circle. And we could be in any space at any time with one or 200 people. And I can't imagine what COVID what being a student during COVID would have been like. I can't imagine it because
yeah,
we hugged, we dabbed, we ran and hit it. I
and
mean, we would turn in the hallway.
yeah, and even just as like a teacher and parent logistics, I as a if I'm not a parent by any means, but if I was
Very
a
good.
parent, yeah, if I was a parent, I would feel more of a bombardum by getting my student who contracts COVID in the middle of your work hours than to know that they're going hybrid or know that they're going online so you have a couple months to weeks to figure something out.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, I'm not a teacher either, but just thinking logistically, if they get sick, then they have a sub. And most of the subs that I see are older people who are more
Yeah.
susceptible to
Yeah.
COVID. So once that's gone through, then who's going to teach the class? It's going to have to go online.
Yeah, and
Wow.
there are two important factors I think I want to talk about. Firstly, there's a lot of research now, especially I mean the WHO has formally recognized this, but there's a lot of research now that supports the fact that this virus can aerosolize and spread through aerosols. So just like clouds basically of your droplets in the air floating around the
Right.
classroom. So
Right.
on top of that, at least from what I've read so far, Hoover High School and Hoover City Schools are saying that in the classroom, it's not required. In the classroom, when you're not moving, it's not required to have a mask on. So everywhere else, moving in the hallways, moving around the classroom, mask. But when you're
Mhm.
sitting in the classroom listening, no mask. Well, that's great. But what
But I'm
happens when
still
person
breathing.
what happens when the person next to you sneezes and
Right.
their cloud of droplets is floating through the classroom and they have COVID? So that's one thing. The other thing is that at the same time, it's difficult for high school and middle school students to do virtual classroom,
Yeah.
just because of the system, the structure of high school, class after class after class, third, fourth, fifth period. It's not like college when you have a class in the morning and then you might have no classes for the rest of the day, and the next day you have two classes.
Mhm.
Um, it's difficult to keep students kind of to have that mental endurance on the virtual classroom
Right.
environment. I don't think that's also a feasible option.
And that was my concern. That's what I was expressing earlier, just about the fact that Sturdy and I were talking about being our age. And I know how I was in middle and high school. Like, go sit down and do what on the computer for how long and
Mhm.
do some notes and do what? Oh, okay, sure. Okay. I didn't have it. I just didn't have it. I developed that skill in my older adulthood in grad school. So after
I still
13
haven't
years of
developed
school,
it.
oh, you still don't have it.
I still don't have that skill.
Dang. So I can only imagine this for a sixth grader or a fourth grader or a third grader. And then you double up, third graders that have attention deficit issues or behavioral issues or a lack of support system. You think about those things, and it's not, I really empathize for those students and those parents, but mostly for the students who will not be able to compete after COVID-19.
Yeah, and I feel like they're not really thinking too hard about weak immune system students, teachers, or even the special ed programs because they have to be there for that, you know?
Yeah,
So I feel like in a way, because thinking about it from a political aspect, it's not really it's not really it's not really beneficial for them to close schools because if you think about it, a parent has to be home because there can't be a kindergarten just at the house by themselves.
Right.
So economically, they're going to
Oh
think of,
boy.
oh, that's going to be more people at home. But I would rather, personally, I would rather have somebody go home to watch their kid and just, work remote than to have to shut down the economy all over again because everybody is sick.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm
man.
glad you touched on that because I didn't want to take this into a political discussion, but I mean,
It's vital.
if
You can do it.
if we're talking about coronavirus, how are you not going to get political? So, there's definitely an agenda here in terms of opening schools. Um, Clearly, our president is pushing big time to get schools opened. I mean, he has formally given a lot of support to this. He's even threatened to not fund schools that are not going to open, which is very, very. I mean, that's a big move and that's a really disastrous move. Um, but the idea here is that it's not just students learn better in the classroom, they do better, we're preparing them for their next step in life, college, the workforce. It's that, like you said, it is an economic advantage to open schools. You keep
Yeah.
parents at work, you keep the kids at school participating in activities, whatever activities there are. That means money spent, that means money for the schools. It just gets the economy bustling when you get kids back in school,
And
and that's what his entire re-election campaign is based on: getting the economy
Mm.
bustling.
yeah, and it makes me think about minority schools because they don't get enough funding as what they should be getting. And by you threatening to pull the plug on them just because they want to take precautions for themselves, it's very detrimental to not just their community, but just all communities.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you guys so much for this conversation. So, if anybody's just tuning in or just jumping on the stream, we have Trevion and Kareem, two awesome young guys that I met this week with the Birmingham Urban League, who are um, very, very well versed in the areas that they speak on. Tonight's conversation is about the return to school for COVID-19, as they are students. These are students right now, like currently living through COVID-19, students who have to decide, well, have it. I'm sure you all have some type of um, position on schooling, Kareem. I'm sure your parents are just going to say you're going back and you don't have anything to say to it. Or a Trevion, yeah, I'm going online in Portland. So you all have options, but to be able to have this conversation and then to also have been very much active and present in the conversation as it pertains to race, racism, colorism, and classism. So all of these things have been layered over the past several months. The past 5 months for all of us have been just amazingly different. I don't think anybody knew that any of this was going to happen. Like, it's a conspiracy. No, we didn't know this was going to happen this way. We didn't know that COVID was going to happen. We could have. We knew we should have, but we didn't. But we definitely didn't know that what happened with George Floyd in um in Minnesota. We didn't know that that was going to do what it did all around the world and what it's continuing to do. I drove through Hoover yesterday. I saw protesters out yesterday. Even still, yesterday was July 25th. Even still, people are still being arrested in other places. Riots are still happening in other places, which makes this conversation imperative because in Birmingham, things have slowed. Things have slowed. COVID is still here. Issues are still here, and the conversation still has to be had. So we are right here in Vital on B94.9 with our special guest for tonight. As you hear, our usual crew isn't here, but I think that these men can hold it down in a way that has not happened in a long time, from a very youthful standpoint, and just very intelligent. And my mom said I think I can't remember what word she used. I need to go back up and find it. It was maybe refreshing. It may have been refreshing. Very refreshing conversation. So thanks guys for being here. All of that to say thank you for being here.
It's our
So
pleasure.
We did it.
absolutely. Thank you so much. So, continuing with conversation before we go to our second break, just wrapping up about education and the outcomes of what's happening right now with COVID-19. So, you all will go back. And I noticed both of you all said that you went to Hoover. And
Mhm.
then, Kareem, you're going back to Hoover. Trevion, you're going to
Portland Community College.
Portland Community College.
Mhm.
So I just want to talk about the disadvantages and the disparities that we will see as a result of COVID-19 and your opinions on that. I feel that there are going to be a lot of people who are even further behind after COVID-19 is said and done and after this school year and this time that they've missed. And I want to know your thoughts on that.
You go ahead, Kareem.
Okay. So, um, I think that it's gonna come down to Comfort is a big factor because obviously there are going to be some small business owners that are not fully comfortable opening back up, and that's fair. I mean, it's all dependent on your priorities, your values, who are you hanging around, do you have family that could be at risk. But what's going to happen is that to stay afloat financially, you're going to have to open up for business owners. And so what we're going to see as a result is, yes, we may see business owners beginning to kind of get through this, or at least staying afloat. But that's just going to drive the case count up. Something has to give. It's either going to be that you're going to suffer financially from not opening up, or you're going to suffer health wise from opening up and exposing yourself and others to the virus. So I think that even if it may not be a financial problem, there's going to be some problem, public health wise or financially. It's not escapable.
Right.
All right. What's your thoughts,
Uh,
Trevion, on just the disparities that we're about to face? I know Kareem spoke about the business sector of it, but I'm thinking about how students will be impacted. How, and I know that students drive economy as well. School supplies are going to be on the shelves. People do not need pencil boxes, and they're not going to be writing on paper and sitting at desks. What are your thoughts?
yeah, I feel like the disparity is gonna all is pretty much all the circle because, like I said, economically, it's better for schools to open. But at the same time, with high school students, a lot of them work in your communities. They might work in Hoover, they might go to Birmingham. And not only are they getting each other sick in their schools and their family sick, they're getting other people sick too in the stores, in the restaurants, because that's where a lot of high schoolers work. So the schools opening up is not only impacting just students and parents, it's affecting the whole community. And we need to look at that as a community. And I feel like with our disparities, goes back into classism, some schools are going to have more opportunities than other. Your suburb schools are going to have a little more knowledge, and well, not just knowledge, but just economics to get into
Right.
electronics. They can find computer access. Some schools, they were struggling just to get computers, or just even a hybrid option for their schools. And
Hmm.
colleges, our colleges, they could go hybrid or they could go online. But at the same time, a lot of students can't afford the tuition as is, and they're making more fees on top of that for online services and whatnot to pay their instructors. But
Yeah.
then also, I would like to add that our international students is getting affected as well through this, because some people, they're here through visas just for education, and with
Hmm.
many schools coming in and they have to stay in dorms and stuff, and a lot of schools are turning away people, then that means a lot of them are slowly getting deported, and that's what we're not talking about.
Well, we can talk about it in just a few moments. You are listening to the Abby Award winning Vital Show right here on B94.9. I am Lady Wu in virtual studio. Who else in the virtual studio? Introduce yourselves one more time. Who we got? What's your names? Oh, somebody.
My name is Kareem McHale.
Kareem. Kareem Miguel.
Yes, ma'am.
Who else?
Trevion Crane.
Travion Crane. So we have
Mhm.
to do that because some people are only able to hear, and then those who are watching are able to watch. So whoever that is calling, you better answer. Yeah, better answer. Let them know you're on the radio right now. So yeah, for those of you who are listening through radio, we have an awesome panel tonight. Young people from around our area who are able to have conversation on a level that is just vital. And you get to hear it firsthand right here on B94.9. If you want to call in or chime in, you can do that right now while we take a quick break. You're listening to Vital, and we'll be back in just about 2 minutes. So don't go far. Don't go far. All right, everyone. So we are not going to end the live. We're going to keep rolling, keep sharing, keep commenting, keep listening, keep watching. I think we're going to get into some conversation that is sure to make you move as we start to talk about education and racism and colorism, and even the what Travion just said about the students. So these are areas that a lot of us aren't thinking. We are just thinking about what we know and what we see on a regular basis. We got to talk about that. Do you have any friends or somebody that you know of personally? The reason that that's a conversation for you or a conversation point for you?
In regards to COVID or just in general?
Well, about the students who are here learning on visas and different things like that, or is it just something that you want to speak about? Do you know somebody personally?
Yeah, I do know somebody personally. I'm not going to put their name out there, but one of my friends is she's actually getting deported soon because of the visas and whatnot. Because now they have it to where ICE makes the decision for you whether or not you get an education or not, and that's where our disparities lie. Because a lot of minority countries in Africa or Middle East and stuff, they don't get as much visas and stuff as European countries. So then you see a lot of those people get deported, whereas Europeans, they're not getting deported on a frequent level.
Gotcha. So yeah, we got to talk about that. So that, like I say, that's an area that a lot of us don't have to think about. So like when you have enough to think about, you're not thinking about those type things. Like I know a lot of people aren't feeling and thinking about what I'm thinking about, and like what Tori is talking about with the IEPs and the different learning plans for students. A lot of people don't have that to think about. So it's an afterthought for them. But we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it in just a moment. We're coming right back, guys, in about 45 seconds. So for those of you who are at home listening and watching, continue. You only have a second to jump up and get something to drink or something to eat or use the bathroom. You got 45 seconds. So hurry up. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Hey, Miss Linda. Vital is rocking and educating. Thank you. And we are back. You're listening to the Abby Award winning Vital Show right here on V94.9. I am the creator and host, Lady Wu. I have some special young guys in studio, in the virtual studio with me tonight, Mr. Kareem and Travion from the Birmingham Urban League Youth Talk, Saving Our Sons, that aired tonight. Well, it aired this evening or earlier this afternoon on social media. I'll be sure to share that to the Vital Show page so that you guys can see it. I was the moderator and just had time to sit with them and listen to them. And I was inspired and so proud to be able to be in a space with young people who actually had something to say. I was just honored to be in that space. So, hey, that's why they're here. Hopefully, all of you who are listening and viewing are getting that same excitement and that push to hear young people who are able to verbalize their thoughts and feelings the way that these guys are tonight. There was a young lady there as well, so don't think that the ladies were left out. We always looking out for the sisters, and she was there. We'll try to get her in at a later time. And there was also another young man who represents Huffman High School, who is going to the Alabama State University in the fall, but we'll hear from him soon as well. So tonight, though, I have these two young men. For those of you who are listening, guys, tell them your names again.
You first.
We gonna do rock paper scissors. Nah, my name is Travion Crane.
My name is Kareem McHale.
So these young men are, for those of you listening, a current student at Hoover High School and a former student at Hoover High School who are being impacted by COVID-19 and also by the very racial, intensified climate that we're all living in. Kareem is an Egyptian. Trevion is a. Do you identify as African American?
Yes.
Okay. African American. So the way that we identify in times of these conversations is important because people have to know who we are and why we feel the way that we feel. Kareem does an awesome job at explaining his situation, which is very unique to me. I'm Egyptian. So tell us about being Egyptian.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome. So I have like my culture, my side of things, the Middle Eastern culture, throw in a little bit of Mediterranean in there. So yeah, it's a cool culture. But in terms of how I identify, I don't actually identify. If I had an option, yeah, I would say that socially I identify as Egyptian. But unfortunately, I don't really have that option because based on just the way that I look, based on what people have like a predisposed idea of me, I identify
Yeah.
as white. And so as a result, I'm subject to the same racial privilege that white people have. And so that's why I feel like it's my responsibility to be here and to treat it as if I am white and I'm receiving that privilege, instead of kind of exempting myself from the discussion.
So let's talk about that. Just, well said. But if I could choose, I would think, some Egyptians were about my color, right? Is that fair?
So, like, as in, like, I want to be like seen as Egyptian.
Yeah. Or like my shade,
Well,
like my actual shade.
yes, so, that's actually, it's a little bit interesting because I don't if you looked at other Egyptians, I don't look Egyptian. Even though I'm
Mm.
100% pure Egyptian, I don't look Egyptian. I look more European a little bit than Egyptian.
Okay.
So if it was someone who is a typical Arabic, Middle Eastern looking person, yeah, they
Mhm.
would not identify as white. You'd know right away this is a person from the Middle East. So that's why I
Okay.
think I have an interesting situation because I'm heavily immersed in this culture and I'm in love with this culture that I have. But at the same time, I'm identifying as white, and so I'm also deeply involved in this white black inequality that's just been raging through this country for centuries now.
Wow. So, you say that I have the privileges. Like I get that I have the privileges of the whites. Do you ever feel guilty about that?
I feel more guilty. To answer your question, yes. Sometimes I do feel
Okay.
guilty about that, and just from discussions in school, and we do have really good discussions in my English class in school through books we read. I do feel guilty about that sometimes. It's not something I chose, but it's something that I do sometimes feel guilty about, and that's natural because there's heavy, heavy disparity in our country. But just kind of bouncing off of that, I feel a lot more guilty if I don't do anything about it. And so that's why I think it's essential for me to firstly take that first step of recognizing that I have that privilege, that it's not like I'm just on the sideline. I'm very much subject to that privilege. And so
Yeah.
it's my responsibility to educate myself, to spread knowledge, to pick up new knowledge along the way, as if I was a white person fully.
I love it. So the term ally, what does that mean to you?
It means understanding that there's someone else who may have a different goal than me, who may have a different background, different experiences. Not different goal, but same goal actually. Different background, different experiences.
Yeah.
A very different, I guess, accumulation of challenges, difficulties through their lives. But it's my responsibility to understand that this ally of mine has been subject to more difficulties than I've been. And so it's my responsibility to give my resources to my ally, and to use my privilege to support my ally to help them get through their challenges.
Man, this is good. This is good. Trevion, you are African American in America, but
Mhm.
in Hoover and then from Portland. So like neither of these are really like the blackest of the black.
Yeah.
Has that has that ever like, I think about people that I am who I am regardless of where I am.
Mhm.
And for you to have been an intern at the Birmingham Urban League and to be passionate about the work that you're doing, what drives you? What is it that drives you
Um,
personally?
um, Probably the older generation,
Okay.
because I talked about it a little bit during Bull Talk. Um, our older generation sacrificed their souls just for us to have the opportunity just to be here today. And seeing seeing that, it really fuels me. And also I travel a lot, so I get to see different cultures of black culture. I get to see Atlanta, I get to see New York, Chicago, even West Coast culture. So I get to see that and then see just the melting pot of different people. And it fuels me to try to bring that together almost, or at least just have an understanding with each other. You don't have to agree on certain things, but just having that understanding is what fuels me.
Okay. So being a like the cultural premise of we need to know more about each other to be able to I get just to be able to like to know each other, to know more about each other's culture would allow us to be able to have conversations, would allow us to not feel as if I'm a stranger when I go to another place or to not treat people as if they're not equal to me. So I think you're kind of going to where I am in life about making sure that people feel comfortable just being we're here. We're all here
Mhm.
and there should not be anything to tell me that I can't go here, that I can't be myself in this space. So I understand what you're saying about that too, and about blending cultures.
Yeah, because we see it a lot now, especially with this heated campaign that's coming. You know, we try, most people, they already know this side. You know, we've been in this thing for about 2 months now, this movement that we have. And
Yeah.
by now, everybody have their opinion. But
Hmm.
now what we see is instead of conversation happening, it's more just so each side bickering at each other. And we don't need that. You
Hmm.
know, we're going to forever stay divided if we can't have conversations or even just acknowledge the problem at hand.
So what should we be talking about? I know that when we had our conversation, we talked about different things as far as like what we're seeing in the community. I want to start there with you guys about what you think we should be talking about as the young leaders of the world. You're the young leaders. You're the generation that everybody's going to be looking at. In 20 years, you'll be saying, "Well, yeah, I was in high school when COVID-19 happened, when the riots happened, when this happened, and this is what I did." What should we be discussing in reference to those things?
I think that just like for me at least, what was most transformative in my own experience, um, I think, and I'm not going to say white people because that's actually part of what's contributing to the problem. All people that have any type
Mhm.
of privilege whatsoever in this situation need to talk about privilege. Um,
Yeah.
it's just it's like a silent force now. It's something that's not spoken. You don't think about it. You don't want to think about it, but it's there, and our system is based on that. It's structured on this idea of privilege and this idea that those who have the privilege have the right to escape a conversation about race, and they have the right to
Mm.
escape any type of learning about their privilege in order to improve their inherent racism that they show towards others. So I think that we first have to just get over our fragility, get over our inability to learn more about ourselves. Because once we have that open mind that speaking about privilege will bring us, then I think that we can really have a lot more progress than we can see now, instead of this bickering, just like Travion was talking about.
Yeah, you mentioned that fragility in the book that I guess really moved you, white fragility. What were some of the things that you got from that? And before I even get you to answer that, I'm thinking about if I had privilege, and there are some privileges that I know I have, even as a black woman here in Birmingham, Alabama. But just overall, there are some privileges that I know I have because of, who I come from, my level of education, who I've been around.
Hmm.
There are things that do give us privileges, and I would think about it from time to time, like, dang, sometimes having privileges puts you in a space where it's hard. It's even harder than those who don't have the same opportunities as you. Like when they see you with the privilege, it's harder for me to have it knowing that you kind of deserve it too. I
Hmm.
can get in this gate, but you got to stand in line, that type thing. So when
Hmm.
you think about somebody actually owning the privilege, that's difficult. So for you to say that, yeah, I've owned it, like this is what I have, I know what I have, I know that privilege ain't fair, but I use it, and then I want others to speak about it. Oh my goodness. I don't know what they would say if they had the opportunity.
Yeah, so I think that that goes back to a big theme that the author of that book was talking about. So D'Angelo was talking, the whole idea of the book was basically that this idea of privilege is fundamentally kind of integrated within our being. It's like we're socialized to ignore it and to just like utilize it at every moment. And it's something that we're not going to escape because of how we've been socialized into it. So a big theme of her book was that you can't really be perfect in terms of racism and privilege. You're not going to be able to be perfect. You're not going to eliminate it 100%. And it's not actually
Mhm.
rational to try to go for that because you will fall short and we're going to be at square one. The big idea that she was talking about is just progress.
Mhm.
And what that means is you just have to stop taking everything so personally. When somebody tells you, okay, what you just said right there, the way you just acted right there, there was a racial problematic behavior that you just showed right there. You can't just get defensive and act like you're actually the
Right.
victim because you are victimizing someone else. So it's like that's the big problem I
Yeah,
think that what
that's
I've
how it
seen.
looks. Y'all know, so
Exactly.
that's what it looks like, right?
That's exactly what it looked like. And so we have to get past that. We have to swallow our pride. It doesn't matter if our face gets red, if we're embarrassed, if we're humiliated. Whoever we are victimizing is a lot more humiliated than who we are or how we feel.
Absolutely.
So you just need to have an open mind, listen to what the person is trying to tell you, um, and again, this is in context of discrimination against African Americans mainly. Um, Listen to what the person is trying to tell you and try to actualize their advice. Make note of it and don't just let it go through one ear and out the other. Make note of it, actualize it, and accept it. And I just think that's the big problem. It's we are so defensive, and we don't want to hear anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Tori is giving another example. I'm not racist. I have black friends.
yeah,
Like
Oh,
that.
too
yeah.
many of that.
Yeah. But the problem with
Stop.
that is that it creates a dynamic without you even knowing it. This is another thing that I think D'Angelo spoke about. It creates a
Mhm.
dynamic within that group, where you have the superiority and the privilege in the group, and your black friends just don't want to say anything about it. And they're feeling it, they're
Mhm.
experiencing, but they're friends with you. They don't want to say anything about it. And please, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it creates a wrongful dynamic that just reinforces the power of race,
I get
and
that.
it just goes back to that fragility. You don't want to hear anything about it, and you can't bear the thought of it.
Yeah, I think so you all do have a unique situation being able to say, like Travion said earlier, going to the high school that you all have gone to where it is probably the most diverse in the state. There are there's the classism there. So like, yeah, we are all friends, but then I may have this friend who has more. And because they have more, then they treat others a certain way. Those issues do really they are a part of this conversation just as much. So, Travion, I want you to speak to that. Like when you think about going back to the education piece of it and resources and the haves and the have-nots. You're not going to need pencils and pens as much as you're going to need laptops and earbuds or AirPods or whatever to be able to learn, and screens and different things like that, different technological devices that you'll need for your schooling. How does that how does like what is that going to create in that space? I already know that that's a space, but now we're going to see the difference with the haves and the have nots that speaks to the classism.
Right. So Hoover, for those who don't know, Hoover has a Google Grant. So each student is have access to a Google Chromebook.
Hmm.
And most students, assuming the circumstances that they are in, most students will probably have Wi-Fi. And if they don't, Hoover set up a thing where they'll go to like different parts of the city and have like different Wi-Fi charters to allow people who don't have Wi-Fi to go work and do what they need to do there. Now, Hoover is privileged enough to have that type of resource to make that happen. Now, if you go anywhere else in the inner city, you're not going to see a lot of that. And it's a little disappointing because education shouldn't be the way it is. I see education now as a way to not only class people but segregate towards people, because now you have to have like a degree to do simple tasks, and it
Mm,
shouldn't be like that.
yeah.
But as far as classism in Hoover goes, zoning is a big thing. Most of our zoning is in our
Hmm.
apartments and not really in the
Hmm.
housing. So, and a lot of our apartments, don't quote me on this, but I feel like it's a lot more minorities in the apartments than there is in the
There we
housing.
go.
So,
So
you
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say now we're getting to the part of the conversation where we turn it up a notch, because you all are in the city that everybody's watching. So they're always watching Birmingham, but they are really watching Hoover right now and still protesting in Hoover, because Hoover is just that place where, man, like, ugh, I don't want to drive through Hoover because the police are gonna, harass me. I don't want to shop in Hoover because they don't really want me here anyway. I don't know if I want to live in Hoover, but I want my kids to go to it's a place. So I want you guys to speak to that when we think about you being there, and then the type of energy and the type of attention that your city is getting right now in the midst of everything. Hoover being that place that has not really flipped the coin. You have the Galleria and the issues there. You have the school system, and like Travion just mentioned, the apartments and the hidden racism that you see. What are your personal thoughts about that?
Um, Here, let me go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, See, Hoover is not really an issue. They have issues like other cities. It's just that Hoover, they put so much into image that they want to block everything. Like they're not. Disneyland where they don't, it's the land of happiness. There's stuff here. It's every other city. You just don't have as much of it and it's not in your face. So when something happens in Hoover, then it just blows.
Got
Like
you.
yesterday, I believe there was a protest that was going on for police and whatnot. And around a lot of the suburb neighborhoods and stuff, I see a lot of the picket signs saying, "We support our police," and, Blue Lives Matter and Trump 2020. It's a lot of that going in the housing and stuff. So just as an African American, when I see that, it's almost like a marking to your house saying, "You don't belong here."
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's the thought. That's the thought.
so I feel like what I've seen with Hoover, and this is like a root of like many problems, but Hoover is like foundationally like their mentality is just focused on expansion. They just want to expand, build more stores, raise the prices. That's all they're worried about. And so, like Travion just said, that is clearly going to create some type of disparity for those who haven't been able to revel in the enjoyment of that urbanization in the first place. The development of those stores and the increasing value of the like living in Hoover. So that just kind of the way I think of it is that we're trying to add on to the pile and build from the foundation when we are built on a foundation that wasn't actually sound in the first place.
Yeah.
So you can keep on building on the systemic inequality that exists in Hoover
Mm,
between the minority groups and specifically again African Americans and other privileged groups. But the fact of the matter is that if you continue building economically building on that inequality, you're only benefiting like 50% of the population of Hoover. The other
wow.
50% suffers. So it's just that foundation that was never actually sound in the first place that we're still trying to build on.
Yeah, and
Travion,
can I
what you got?
also
Thank
add,
you. Yeah.
just I was just doing more research before I get to talking about issues like this. But
Right.
for instance, after integration kicked in Birmingham and more specifically Birmingham city schools, that's when a
Mhm.
lot of people fled to over the mountains. So you see a lot of a population surge in Vestavia,
Yeah.
population surge in Hoover because they wanted to escape that. So people need to realize that this is why a lot of people are here in Hoover and stuff like that. It's not because of, you know, cheaper housing, stuff like that. It was mainly because of integration that happened in the city. So when you see, as an outsider looking in, when we moved here, we were like, oh, this is a red flag because Hoover City Schools is still under a civil rights lawsuit for their schools and
Mhm.
integration. So and other schools like Vestavia and Mount Brook, they were a part of that same lawsuit, but they worked their way out through federal courts through statistics and whatnot. Hoover, there don't quote me on this, but there's about 6 times more likely for a Black student to get disciplinary actions in alternative school than white students. So there's still disparities, and it seemed
See?
like as a student being there, they
Yeah.
were always promoting like we're diverse, but diversity doesn't mean equity inequality. So they need
All
to
right now.
learn the two.
So for those of you who are tuned in, you are listening in amazement to two young men who are representing the Birmingham Urban League and definitely representing themselves and their families in such an awesome way tonight on the Abby Award winning Vital show. This is the type stuff that made Vital what it is, being able to have a platform. I was in college when I started this show. I wasn't much older than you all when I started this show, when I started the platform. And these are the conversations that we would have. And when we were having these conversations, it didn't strike me that we were doing something that was just so amazing. But now in my position, I can look at you all and say, dang, that was amazing because I was just a little bit older than them when this started. And I was able to have these conversations with older adults that heard me and they respected my opinion. They respected my experiences and they valued what I was saying. And that's what made us vital. So I'm really happy to be able to stand in this position today and give you guys this platform to share your thoughts and your experiences and feelings as well. And it is just awesome to be able to hear you speak the way that you're speaking about the days that we live in. So, um, I see some comments up from Tori. Tori put something up earlier also that said, I guess you guys are kind of speaking to it, but just the whole experience of Hoover itself, Hoover, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, and the Great Division. But people like you are going to make that thing shift and move a little bit differently, and we appreciate you for that. Black students are disciplined much harsher than their white
Yes.
counterparts. So yeah,
Yes.
we've heard of that, and I know that Tori may know that firsthand because she's in the school system in a vein that actually speaks to those behavioral issues and those emotional issues. And those are also the disparities that I speak of when we talk about returning to school or not returning to school and students still being isolated and or neglected or um their education just not being a priority at this time. So that's where we are, everyone that's listening. If you're tuned in through the radio, that's what it is. And you can still call in as well. 994-8949, 994-8949. The phone lines are open to you all throughout the show as well. So before we go to break, I want to talk about the image of George Floyd, which is what kind of started this whole the upsurge of the movement. I don't think we ever stop moving, but we take breaks. I just got to be real. We take breaks. We wait on something to happen, and then it happens. We turn all the way up, and then we start to lose our steam. When you all saw what was happening, or what happened to George Floyd, what did you think and what did you feel?
You want me to go first, or
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a moment to think.
all right?
Go
Well,
ahead. What did you think and feel?
when I seen the George Floyd thing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening once more, because before that it was Ahmaud Arbery and him getting gunned down in the street, and then now we have George Floyd, who nobody could deny that what happened was wrong. You know, everybody's seen that. To me, as far as police brutality goes, it wasn't really surprising to me because it happens all the time. It's just that now it's recorded. But once I seen that, I didn't expect the movement that to spark off of that,
Right.
but I did expect an uproar in people. And I feel like the proper response for us is to make sure our individual communities are limiting themselves from having that sort of thing happening. Because when we see it on the news, it's like, oh, that's all the way in Minneapolis. You know, who cares? But,
Mm,
you know, there's still stuff here in our community that we could fix so we wouldn't have to go through something like that.
okay.
So I have to say that in terms of the image, um, when it came to a white man kneeling on an African American man's neck, no, I wasn't surprised. No, and unfortunately, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
It was just reinforcing an image that has been seen throughout the entirety of this nation's history, white supremacy. Now, what did catch me off guard, and what I think really undergirds what has changed from the civil rights movement, for example, to now, is that there was an Asian American officer standing by, watching quietly, letting it happen. So what that communicated to me, and I think that symbolizes perfectly that we don't just have now people who are white people who are bystanders who are going to decide not to fight for African American rights. We now have a large percentage of minorities in this country that are standing by and watching their fellow minorities get disadvantaged and abused daily, by the white supremacist system that we live in. So I think the image of an Asian American man letting this happen really just symbolizes that now we have a whole nother threat of complacency and ignorance from a large percentage of minorities.
Mm. So still speaking to that privilege piece, the hierarchy of minorities. There's still some that feel that they're better than others, or they have a little
Yes.
more privilege than others because they aren't the others. So I'm gonna idly stand by, but then to find out that there was relationship didn't help that case at all. That these people actually had a relationship. So I know, like, for me to ask, what did you feel when you saw that? After seeing it so many times, I remember the first time I saw it, Kareem, I was actually in disbelief. I was in disbelief simply because I'm one of those do unto others type people. So like I couldn't imagine myself doing that. So to see somebody doing it, that I had to take that in first. Then the second part of it, I had to think about the fact that you see cameras on you, sir, and you
Yes.
look like it was evil. So I felt the evil, which broke my heart because I'm like, now, if we have evil running rampant like that, I mean, I don't know what's next. So I kind of felt that what happened next would happen next, which
Hmm.
leads me to want to talk to you guys about what happened next. So we all saw it. We all felt it. We all heard the commentary about it. And then we all started to respond. People started to respond. Those responses came in lieu of riots, protesting, news conferences, different things. It's oh,
Ooh.
what's happening?
Ah.
So all of these different things started to happen as a result of what we witnessed. Where were you all with the idea of protesting and marching? Like, what were your thoughts on that? Like, what happened next, and what was your position on how it happened after we saw the footage?
All right. So what happened next? I mean, social media just went viral. We've seen a lot of people start to have those conversations that were uncomfortable just a week prior to
Yeah.
now it's you have to talk about it. You have to address it. We see a
Hmm.
lot of companies try to, prove that they're not racist by having different things out there to, say we stand by Black Lives Matter. Then we had Blackout Tuesday, which was a day for education and to basically stop the feeds that you would see on social media to shed light on this issue. And then um, it seemed like it just kind of trailed off from there, but I'm not going to get
Yeah.
far into depth with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a pretty much a social media uproar.
Yeah,
Was
so
that
I
enough?
agree. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just asking, was that enough?
No.
No.
Definitely was not enough. And the problem is that like the social media uproar itself wasn't necessarily like the best quality social media uproar. A large percentage of like what I saw from like our community, at least the Hoover community, Travion, was very like performative actions, like not actually like internally wanting to fix something by like reaching your follower base on social media, but just seeming as if you're conforming with the changes and you're looking like you're on the right side of history.
Yeah, you don't want to
So
look racist.
exactly. So it was very disingenuine kind of social media acts, and I'm
Yes.
glad that I saw a lot of kind of part of the movement was actually telling people that you are part of this performative problem and you're actually contributing to the problem and not solving it. And that came pretty early on, so I think that was actually a good note.
Mm. I want to know, with you all being able to have this conversation. So many young people cannot have this conversation because their families aren't having these conversations. They haven't been exposed to these conversations or really exposed to the issues in a way that actually brings them in it. They're kind of able to stand by and have their opinion, but oh, children shouldn't be in these conversations. Go in your room. You shouldn't see this. You all have a different vantage point, and I want to know how that developed. How did you all become so in tune with what's happening socially, and what do your parents say?
Go ahead.
Um, okay, so for me, I mean, I'll just have to get into the conversation because it affects me every day as a black man in America. You can't ignore what's going on because it's right there in your face. Even if you're in the inner city or in the suburbs or in the country, you're going to get affected in some way from this.
Yeah.
So with my parents, we discuss it almost every day. And then,
Hmm.
my family, we also discuss it all the time. So, we have to discuss this as a community and just in general. Yeah.
So I have to
Thank
say
you.
for me, like this whole process, this whole sequence of events, unfortunately, has again just shown me my privilege. It's something I've known, I've been aware of, but how can I be aware of just to what extent that privilege can lead us to where a white man can just kill a black man right there in
Wow.
front of
Yeah.
cameras? How can I get off of social media after seeing all these posts about self education and what's going on and informing me about the movement? How do I get off of social media knowing that I have that privilege, knowing that I have a duty
Mm.
to fill, and not feel horrible about it? And it's just a moral obligation, I think, as anyone who has this kind of privilege to educate yourself and to contribute to solving this problem. And so, what's nice for me actually is, again, with our background, my family is not necessarily does not have that intimate experience with white black racism right now or inequality.
Right.
So it was nice because not only was I able to educate myself and just keep it internally within my thoughts, something that I fixed, but when I took it to my family and I kind of educated them and spoke with them, it was like
Yes.
putting
Yes.
all of
Yes.
my knowledge into action. So not only
Okay.
did that help me reinforce what I had learned about my own privilege and myself, but that also I think better equipped me to take it to a community level.
I love it. And what these type conversations do is that they inspire other people to want to learn more. So like Kareem, I would want to have a conversation with you and your family to learn about you all and like some different things that I wouldn't know, for you to be able to say, yeah, I am Egyptian and I moved here when I was 2. So what do you remember? Do you all go back? What are some of the traditions? What are some of the things that people say that are offensive? I would want to know those things. So I think that this part of our lives has allowed us to want to learn more about each other. It goes back to what Travion said earlier about us getting out of our bubbles and learning more about each other and respecting the fact that, yeah, we're different, but we are so much alike. We're way more alike than we are different. And in those places that we are different, we should still be respectable and should be able to respect the differences.
Right. And I feel like also this movement isn't really a white versus black. It's
Hmm.
justice versus injustice, straight like that. Because
Yeah.
obviously, through my social media feeds, at least, I see way more stuff about other things like Palestine and ICE. We see so much, it all ties in together, which is just a bunch of injustice going around for systemic oppression. And we just
Yeah.
need to tackle it.
Let's tackle it. So that's what we're doing right now. For those of you who are tuned in through your radio, I have some awesome, awesomely amazing, intelligent young men in studio with me tonight, Trevion and Kareem, who were two of the speakers with the Bull Talks that are taking place at the Birmingham Urban League bi-weekly on their social media platforms. I was the host and moderator of the one for the youth group, which happened today. It aired today at 4 p.m. If you didn't get a chance to see it, go back to the page right now. You can go to my personal page, Dana Wu Woodruff, or to our Vital Show page and see the video from the commentary that took place. It was awesome. We talked about the Black Lives Matter movement. In short, what does that movement mean to you all? Black Lives Matter. Like, is it just a saying or is it really a movement?
I think that what actually helped me really understand what it means is hearing the all lives matter excuse. So I feel like that just takes away from the importance of the fact that we need to stand up for and endow the rights of equality, and that should be just a natural right. It's written in our constitution. It's a natural right that all people should be subject to. So I think that we need to complete, obviously, that mission. But hearing the all lives matter excuse just made me realize that what Black Lives Matter means is that yes, we are acknowledging that everyone's life is important, and yes, we are acknowledging that everyone has access to these equal rights. But right now, in this day and age, it is Black people that are most in need of that assistance. It's like, for example, you have a group of students in a classroom. All of them are learning about math, but one of them is struggling horribly on math. They don't understand the idea of addition, for example. You're not going to say, okay, well, all the students matter, so I just can't help you. You're going to help that one student because they're the ones who are struggling the most. And so if their life matters, they should be on the same level academically as other students. It's the same
Right.
idea with our society right now. Black people need to be on the same level as most other populations in our society. And so Black Lives Matter means that we just need to advance that movement in order to actually make all lives matter truly.
I love it. Black Lives Matter right now. All lives matter, yeah. Oh, duh. But right now, we're talking about the fact that Black lives matter and it should be an equal playing field for all lives. Trevion, what are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement?
Just like y'all said, it's not saying that only Black lives matter, all lives matter. It's just that right now we're acknowledging the Black ones.
Yeah.
And not only is it a look just for other people who aren't in the Black community to look at each other and realize what we're doing wrong, it's also within our own community to see what we're doing. We need to start supporting more Black owned businesses, reinvesting more into our community. Don't let gentrification come in and take our communities. Let's build our own community, you
Right.
know and a lot of what I see too is social media posts and informing folks, and that's cool. But I mean, here at Hoover, you see it all the time, Kareem. We have see something, say something. Well, everybody who's out there who's in this movement need to do something. Let's start getting more
Hmm.
petitions going. Let's start getting
Mhm.
more legislation going, because it's cool to take out the whitening or whatever, or Aunt Jemima off the poster, but are you going to have more Black execs in your office? Are you
Right.
going to have support more Black owned business? It's more to it than just the social media post.
Yeah, and I want to hit on that because that's why I think the Black Lives Matter movement has so much influence. It is such a strong movement that is gaining so much traction, obviously, as of recent, because it's catering to that young audience that can really advance this movement and pick out those leaders that have the courage to really stand up against the system.
For sure.
But it needs to, and it's already doing this. Don't get me wrong, but we really have to shift the focus, I think, to legislation. That's where the changes are going to happen. That's where you need to get the elected leaders in office that are going to make long lasting laws that are going to transform this nation face value. And so that's why I think that all this is great, but the movement needs to be translated into lawmaking.
That is so important, especially for your demographic when it comes to voting and voting rights and understanding the power of a vote. So yeah, we put the legislation in place and then we don't vote. We
Mhm.
complain about it, we pick it about it, but we don't vote because we feel that our votes don't count. Now, I don't know if that's something that is happening in your demographic or not, or your age group. Are people still saying that?
Yes, all the time. Especially if you're liberal in Alabama, you're going to
Oh
get
my
that all
goodness.
the time. That, oh well, I mean, it's a Republican state. That's it. But people need to also educate themselves on how our government works. The
Hmm.
president only have so much power. You also still have local officials, you still have your state officials, so you still have to keep up with those elections, and then you also have congressional. So
Right.
you don't want, like, this 2020 election for liberal people, at least I'm speaking on. You don't
Yeah.
want another 2008 with Obama where you have your liberal black president, but he couldn't do much because the House and everything in Congress is controlled by Republicans. So for everybody who's out there that's getting ready to vote, also educate yourselves on your congressional leaders and your local leaders, because that's where your direct life is going to be impacted. And then your congressional people, even if, let's say, Trump wins, if Congress is controlled by Democrats, he cannot get
Hmm.
a lot done.
Yeah. So that means that the power to vote, and the right to vote, and then just today, thinking about what today has put in front of us with the services for the life to, or the honoring of John Lewis, who that's his platform, voting rights and voting as a young person in Selma. Like that was what his work was about. So for us to be having this conversation right now is so timely. I wonder about what that education looks like. Like, what do you all think would be the key to really getting people geared up to vote, to always wanting to exercise their right to vote? Are we doing it right? Are voter registration drives not working anymore? Is a let me give you a free T-shirt? Is that not enough anymore? What do we need to be
Um,
doing?
um, I don't know, because I'm a young voter now, so I'm 18, so I could vote. I think a
What
lot
did
of
it
it,
take to get you to vote? Nothing. Just the fact that you had the right.
yeah, because
You're
I
different. Yeah, you all are
Yeah,
different.
because my family,
Let's just be real.
there's people out there who are felons that can't vote. So I think
Yeah.
of them like they want to vote, but they can't. So
Okay.
even if I don't feel like this candidate is like just right for me, at least vote for that person who can. And with COVID-19, especially here in Alabama, they're promoting, people to go out and vote, and some people aren't comfortable with going out physically and voting. So it takes a lot of people out just by doing that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
if we're discussing as theoretically as if we're in a normal state, COVID is not a problem. I think that the key idea here is, like Travion said, you need to understand the influence that just local elections can have. You have to start somewhere. And so if you start at the local level and you build that momentum up, eventually getting to the state level, eventually to the national level, it has to start at that first foundation, which is the local level. So I think it's as simple as encouraging people to not forget that, okay, the primaries are important, the general election is important, but that's not the only vote that you have to participate in. There are other votes that you need to participate in to start somewhere. So it could be as simple as just sharing a list of voting dates for local votes, state votes, and getting involved in
Mm.
those, and just informing people of the influence that that can have, and helping them understand that it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
It has to start somewhere. It's starting right here, right now on Vital V94.9. I am Lady Wu with the Vital Youth Crew. Tonight we have the Vital Youth Crew is something that started a long time ago as well, and it had been very difficult to get young people to be able to get in here and have these type conversations, and honestly, to have any conversation because it was so open that hey guys, come on and talk about whatever it is that you all need to hear. What do your peers need to hear? It was difficult to get young people to do that. My friends at the Birmingham Urban League know me, and I got a call, and Kelly said, "Hey, I need you to moderate this conversation with the youth. Are you available?" Yeah, so I was available, and I ran into these guys who you guys are listening to tonight, and I was just overwhelmed with excitement about bringing them on air, and that is where we are. That's what you're listening to tonight. So hopefully you all are being invigorated with this level of conversation from these young men who are not 30. They're not 45. They're not even 25. How old are you all?
I'm
18.
17.
17 and 18 years old. This is just amazing, and just I'm really grateful to your parents, okay? Tell them I said what's up. Good job. The phone lines are open 994-8949 994-8949. You all are not exempt from this conversation. So if you want to call in, share some encouragement, share a comment on anything that you've heard tonight, the phone lines are open for you to do that. This has been a great experience and great conversation. We're going to continue the conversation right now with a question about what is next. So you think about everything that has happened. We've touched on a lot about what has happened, what is happening, what do we think the fix will be, but what's next for each of you? So like in order to have these conversations, you already have to be doing something or kind of have some direction on what it is that you want to do. So what are your thoughts and plans? What are your goals? Kareem, we'll start with you.
So what I think is kind of hitting me hardest of all out of all this is the disparity that we're about to have in education. There are going to be all kinds of problems in terms of the disparity, the racial disparity in education, access to resources, access to testing, prep, standardized
Yes.
tests are already a problem. And so they're going to be a bigger problem moving forward. Already ACT is releasing like new books, but not everyone is going to have access to those books and those resources. So for me, I feel like I've been called to start a tutoring service or some type of tutoring program for students that are not as privileged. And so that's actually what I've been doing. I'm working with the Birmingham Urban League right now, and we're putting forward a tutoring service for students, Birmingham City school students that are underprivileged right now from grades 6 to 12, mainly for math, science, and English. Um, it offers them online access to courses. It's free of charge. And hopefully it's going to be starting up soon. But I feel like it is just that this kind of service is essential for students right now who just don't have access to the same resources that students in Hoover, for example, could have.
I absolutely love that. Travion, I got you on. What are your goals? What do you plan on doing, and what are you already doing to help keep the movement moving?
Well, first, I want to say that I'm shying away from social media a little bit and doing more
Hmm.
footwork because that's what we need.
Hmm.
Social media posts could go so far, but what we're asking, well, we're not even asking, we're demanding for change legislation. So right now, I'm just discussing different things that we could do in our own community. And in Portland, I'm trying to make sure, because I'm a part of the Multnomah Youth Commission there now. So we are actively working for different causes for the city of Portland. Like right now, we're pushing for Youth Pass to be 18 and under, all for free. We're
Yeah.
pushing for start times to be later for students and working against youth against violence. So
Okay.
I'm doing a little more footwork now just um, than just on social media, and even within our own community. I'm interning with the Birmingham Urban League, so keeping active with our inner city, even though I'm in the suburbs right now. So just making sure our inner city is not left out.
That's so important. You guys have some great insight as to what's necessary. A lot of us have ideas about things that we know would be helpful to society, but we don't have the access. We don't know where to go with it. We don't know who to link with to actually make it happen. And I'm just glad that you are in a network that allows you to be able to put it forward. Kareem, I wanted to ask you a question about your services. Are you going to be doing this tutoring, or are you bringing in people?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm actually starting with a friend of mine at Hoover High School as well. And we're going to be providing these services as of now, us two. Other teachers
Mhm.
are actually getting involved as well from a retired teacher association, as well as some current teachers. They want to help us
Wonderful.
out. And so we're going to, like I said, helping in math, science, and English. For all
Mhm.
students that wish to have these resources, we're setting up flexible times. And again, that's why we're getting teachers involved to have as much resources and access as possible for students. And it's just an exciting, I think, opportunity to really make a difference for some students that may have left off in the fourth 9 weeks of school, the fourth
Yeah,
quarter, missing some foundations, getting ready for the new school year. And I think it's going to make a big impact, hopefully, for those who are in that difficult boat.
for sure. Um, I woke up the other morning, it may have been Thursday or Friday, and I was just really thinking about that. I opened the show talking about it. You're talking about it. We've talked about it throughout the show, but just the disparities that we're going to face as a result of COVID-19 and schools reopening or not. And then just knowing, so I am a psychotherapist. I'm a counselor, and knowing some of the things that I've seen and some of the stories that I've heard about how children are, that's not the top priority for parents in times like this. Some parents, I mean, it's just their children are not a top priority. Their families are not a top priority, and I have struggled with the fact that I know that some students will be neglected in the most dangerous way. And that is why I was so torn on returning to school. Like, would I rather, COVID take them out, or would I rather poverty and neglect take them out? So it's a very, for me, I was thinking along those lines. But for something like what you're saying that you want to do with those students from sixth to 12th grade, what I was thinking about was these churches. It's 100 churches on every block. I mean, churches in stores, churches in houses, churches in the church building, churches on the lot, churches everywhere. And I was just thinking about, churches are the places where resources and people are pooled. COVID is real, COVID is out, but there are groups of people that could come together and get those retired teachers and those cooks and those people that are good with cleaning, get in there, bring 10 students and two teachers, and get to the foundations and get to the basics and be of service. Now, the other part of that, I was saying this is my idea, but I go to a church that we don't even have a church building, but we have the people that would love the opportunity to serve in such a way, because we also know children who would need the services that we would be offering. So if anybody's listening right now and they have ideas as to how to make that happen, how to get our churches rolling in a way to come out of those walls, or at least to open their walls up so that our community can be serviced, hit me up on the inbox. Let us know. I think that would be just an awesome conversation to have. Organizations like the Urban League, any organizations that are civic and that are available to help. Open your doors. Let the community use your Wi-Fi. Bring the resources to the community so that children, hey, if their parents aren't going to take the time to work with them, maybe we can in the community. If you're interested, hit me up in my inbox. You can email me at iamladywoo@yahoo.com. I am Lady Woo at yahoo.com. Woo is WOO, not WU. Travion, so you talk about legislation.
Mhm.
Are you interested in running for office? Have you seen anything that or anyone that has inspired you to run for office of some sort?
Eventually, yes.
Yay.
Where it may be, I don't know. Well, only God
Okay.
will steer me to that direction. But
Uh-huh.
I feel like we just need a little more youth, well, what we consider politically youth, input, because I mean, in my opinion, I feel like we shouldn't have so many career politicians right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because how do you expect the people who made the laws to redo the laws that they just made? You know, you need new faces to,
Yeah.
you need new people, new faces to restructure everything. If in
Yeah.
that sense.
I agree. So being that young blood, that fresh energy, having some new eyes on the old issues and trying to figure it out, you're up for that challenge.
Hmm.
Awesome. So before we go, the last question that I asked before we got off of the broadcast today, um, what is it that you need from older generations to help you in your pursuit and to help society? What do you need from, I'm not going to say us because I'm your peer, but from those older than us? What do you all need from the elders in the movement? What do you need?
Wisdom, wisdom for sure.
Okay.
Cause um, I say it all the time to people my age. The '60s civil rights movement was our grandparents. It was fairly recent.
Okay.
The black don't let the black and white fool you.
Yeah.
It's fairly recent. We just need that wisdom and insight because somebody had to give you that knowledge for you to go out and do that back in when you were our age. So we need that same thing. We don't really
For
need to
sure.
be judged calling us soft because we're just trying to make it better for our future generations, just like they've done for us.
All right. Okay. Kareem, what do you need?
So for what I need from, I'm going to be speaking mainly to the older generation of privileged people.
Mm.
Um,
Let me go find them. Hold on one second. Are you? We're
so
gonna share this to those privileged groups. Go ahead.
yes, yes, exactly. So I really think that it's essential right now to realize that you are not disconnected from this. This is not a young person movement. Please don't think that you've like done your part and now you're exempt from like contributing to the same thing that you think you might have been contributing 4 years ago. Again, the problem was never solved. The problem has always been there. It's just changed form, and now it's actually beginning to reveal itself the same way we saw it in the civil rights movement. Um, get involved, address those kind of unexamined assumptions that you might have that might be giving rise to that racism in your life, that you don't know about. Educate yourself, and you don't have to be like some big social media personality to be contributing during this time. Start in your heart, figure out what's going on with your heart, address that, and start with the home and environment, and just be connected throughout this entire process.
I agree. So we need knowledge, we need wisdom, and we need self accountability
And
and self
outreach.
reflection. And okay, and
Outreach.
outreach. So
Yeah,
reach out.
yeah,
We need some
because
outreach.
we there's always a community out there, and especially speaking more so to the suburb
Yeah.
citizens. Just even go 20 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
Go into the inner city, work with those people, and stop using them as statistics. They're people. So
Mm.
just go in and see it for yourself, and then know where we lie is a community.
Those are all awesome. So, guys, before we get out of here, any final thoughts? Anything that you want to share? Just to anything that we did speak on, anything that we didn't speak on. Your social media. How can people find you? How can they invite you to their table if they want to have more conversation?
Um, Here, Kareem, you can go first.
Okay, so yeah, in terms of my social media, I'm always trying to, if there's anything that I said throughout this conversation that you are not happy with, that you feel like was racially problematic, again, it goes back to that idea of trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong and how am I kind of implicitly showing any type of bias or inequality. So my social media on Instagram is K underscore Mikhail. Mikhail is Mikhail 9, I believe. 9. DM me any messages that you may have about something that I said wrong, something that you agree with, disagree with. Give me any type of tips in terms of what I can do better, and that will be incredibly helpful for me. And hopefully, if I taught you anything or helped with anything, that will, of course, be helpful for you as well.
Yeah, and same thing. I challenge everybody out there who's willing to help with our cause to start getting more into our legislative side of things because we are aware of the issue. We just need to directly attack it. If you want to find me on social media, I'm on Twitter at Trevion Crane, Trevion Crane, Crane. And I'm also on Facebook, same name. And you can hit me. We could start dialogue, you know. So if
You
you
know,
don't, if
let's
you're,
chat.
yeah, if you're conservative, I'm not going to judge you. We could have our conversation because, like I said before, the first step to unification is conversation. So we don't need bickering. Just hit me and we could talk.
I love it. So it's posted. I see a comment from Miss Angeline. She said she tried calling it, and I actually saw it, but I didn't. I just didn't get a chance to reach over far enough. Sorry, but she was gonna say, I just love this. I wanted to say, outstanding young men with bright futures to positively impact and change this country, state, and world. May God continue to bless overflowingly and protect Travion and Kareem. That's my mama.
Thank you,
So
Mom.
Thank you so much.
yeah, yeah. So you know that we learn a lot from who we come from, and we learn how to love people based on who loved us and how they taught us to love people. So that's why I can say that your parents deserve a high five because mine sure do for being able to um allow me to be bold. So when I was your age, I was speaking out just like you are, and I encourage you to continue to do that because you never know where it may take you. It may lead you to the position that I'm in when I decide to be a guest on your show after I've flown away to Egypt to visit and am kicking it at the pyramids or something.
I
So you
think you'll
know
be
this.
very happy to hear that I actually have seen friends in Egypt who are posting right now about Black Lives Matter.
Yes,
Yes.
see, so it's a
We
worldwide
are worldwide.
conversation.
Yes,
I
Absolutely,
exactly.
it's a worldwide conversation. I hope that you guys listening have loved the show tonight just as much as I did as your host and our panelists. I think they've enjoyed the show as well. But I hope that you all have that you've learned something, that you've been inspired, you've been encouraged. In the midst of COVID, where we think that everything is wrong, there are some things that are still right. You cannot allow COVID or racism to define the whole 2020. It just wouldn't make sense to do that. There are still some very bright moments that are happening daily, and you have to make sure that you get them. Hold on to them when they happen. Put them in a jar. Keep them. Write them down. Take pictures of them. There are still some beautiful things happening and some great conversation, like what we just had tonight. You can catch this conversation every Sunday night right here at 7 p.m. on V94.9. And then on Wednesdays, I do a thing called Woo Wednesday, social media only. So find me on social media and, we can chop it up that way. We're getting ready to get into another series. We're still doing the Vital Agenda. It's still happening, talking to leaders around the world, right here in Alabama, about the Vital Agenda, what needs to happen, what needs to be discussed. Also, the relationship conversation is happening. It's going to be a series of conversations about different elements of relationship. So if you're interested in being a part of that, inbox me at Dana Woo Woodruff or email me at iamladywoo@yahoo.com. Guys, you ready to go?
I guess we have to go.
I guess so.
I guess
I mean, we,
we could
we
talk
can
about
hang
this
on
all
social
night.
media. I know, right? We can hang on social media. But for those of you who are listening via the radio, we will talk to you next Sunday at 7 p.m. Those of you on social media, maybe about 5 more minutes. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. It's been vital. All right, guys. So let's see what's happening in studio is over. So right now, social media still has our attention. So if it's anything that you guys want to leave everybody with, anything else, because I know I was saying that we were, I gave you your sign off on air, but anything else that comes to mind that maybe we didn't discuss that you want to talk about later or now?
Um, Engage your community on what's going on in our elections, please.
Oh, okay. So something I wanted to talk about. I saw this in the comments, but a space for conversations in school
Yeah,
about
I
these
saw that. I
issues.
got that.
I don't know how that slipped my mind. I was gonna say something about that, but that's really important because yeah, I mean we have these conversations, but they're very disingenuine. Like I said during the BUL talk, like they're very abstract, and it's not actually like putting anything into action or like actually examining someone's behavior directly or teaching us how to have like racial endurance among privileged people to actually learn about the mistakes we're making. I think that's important.
Right, and I must add to that. I served actually in our school's student diversity council, and they have a teacher diversity council as well. So our goals were to address some of our diversity related issues in Hoover. It couldn't get off as much as what we wanted it to, but it's still there. They're hoping that they could expand on it more in the future. I pray that it expands, and then also at Hoover High School, we do have, I believe, 3 African American principals.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we have three African
Yes.
American principals, but that's still not enough because just having them doesn't mean that it's going to solve anything. And they do preach all the time, like I've said before, diversity and equity. Well, they have diversity, but they don't really acknowledge the equity part because there is not a lot of equity in Hoover. And we do have a director of diversity and equity for Hoover City Schools, but he's kind of hard to reach. So
Okay.
that's what we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I'm sure you know this page, Trivion, but there's a page on Instagram now that is documenting
Mhm.
injustice at Hoover High School. Do you know the name of that Instagram?
Yeah, it is at Injustice HCS.
Okay,
Wow.
I can
Huh?
comment that real quick. But yeah,
It's amazing.
that's actually like putting I think that's the closest that we've gotten to having like some type of genuine community conversation about acts of injustice at Hoover High School, what it looks like. And for someone, I know for myself during the school year, and this is something that I feel guilty about, but I get so wound up in my academics and sports, extracurriculars. I don't I it's my mistake, but I don't pay enough attention to these acts of injustice that are just surrounding me every day at school.
I was thinking about something like that. I was in Montgomery the other day, and I went to Alabama State, which is in Montgomery. And through my college eyes, like as a college student, I did not recognize, and I didn't think to pay attention to the fact that it was still so just so Confederate like. It was crazy. Like, so going back as an adult and thinking like, how did we not march about this in 2002? How were we not offended by the fact that all of the high schools were still named like Robert E. Lee and Sidney Lanier, and like, why was this not a thing for us? So, like, as youth and as children and as students, we are focused on what youth, children, and students focus on. But now things are different. Things are
Yeah.
definitely different.
And I also want to add too, it's not just Hoover. There are many other ones. I want to shout them out too.
Yeah.
Injustice Birmingham City. They have Homewood, Spain Park High School, Shelby County Schools, Vestavia Hills, Chilton County, um, Moody High School, and I think that's it. And Hewitt Trustville. So there's many
That's
more. And if you're in the Birmingham Metro, please, if that hits home to you, it's there. So please check them out.
okay. Awesome. So what we've gained from this extra couple of minutes is that you all need spaces to be able to have these conversations more often than not, and then have these conversations in the spaces where they're actually happening.
Exactly.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So some sort of covering to say, hey, we're going to come in and have this conversation. We got it. Some diversity training, some cultural conversations, led by people that can have those conversations in a
Yeah.
manner that can make it comfortable.
Yes,
Yeah.
and in an academic setting and like a genuine conversation that puts the discussion into action.
Note
Mhm.
well taken. Put it
Or
together. We'll
even
pull up.
or even with our curricular, just in general with world history,
That's
Yes.
have more cultures that's not dominated by Europeans.
Yes.
hmm
It's uplifting just within that to know that, wow, my African heritage has something more than just we had gold and just stole it.
Mm-mm. Okay then. All right, people. So you all we've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation tonight. Sir said is going to he shared this video to them. So yeah, this video is great to share to anybody anywhere. So you guys, I can send it to you all if you didn't share it anyway or already share it, or either I can share it to your connections at the Urban League and they can get it to you so that you can then share it. However you like to do that. Um, Travion, that photo behind you,
Mhm.
your backdrop is
Yep.
dope. I
Yep.
thought that
Erica
was
Badu.
Yeah.
Erica Badu.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that?
I got it at a an Urban League function for Black History Month. I forgot the artist's name, but I would definitely appreciate tagging her if I have her Instagram still. But dope
Somebody
artist.
local?
Yep.
Yeah, draw me. I like that. Okay. All right, guys. Well, no school tomorrow, not yet, but I'm sure that you have something very productive and vital to do. So I'm going to let you get to it, and I'm going to get to mine and go ahead and log off and get out of the studio. Thank you all so much for sharing with me tonight. It's been so amazing.
It was nice to be here.
It was a
Yeah.
pleasure.
So until next time, young men, be easy, stay out of the way, continue to be great.
Mhm.
Bye.